Go.
1,
2,
3, 4, 5.
Here's the 0-1. This is going to be a tough play. Bryant, the Cubs win the World Series. That was the last call made by the commentator of the final win for the Chicago Cubs to win the Major League Baseball World Series in 2016 for the first time in over 100 years. This moment was long awaited for and an extremely joyful moment for much of the baseball world. For many, baseball is more than simply a game. A sport composed of so much more than simply the athletic ability of one individual. While baseball players are certainly no slouch when it comes to athletics, that is not what differentiates the sport. The atmosphere, tradition, and superstition of America's pastime is what allows it to distinguish itself among many. But how was baseball able to rise to such fame? What caused both fans and players to fall in love with the sport? And even before that, where and when did the game originate? These are the questions we hope to answer in the next few moments. Let us begin in 1845 in the great state of New York. It was there where baseball truly began. As History.com would attest, baseball is a derivative of an English game known as rounders, as well as the more familiar game of cricket. Both of these contain some form of bat and ball that involves hitting to accomplish a specific goal. These games truly came together for the first time in New York. It was at this time where a man came along who would influence the course of baseball forever. His name, Andrew Cartwright. According to the Baseball Hall of Fame, Cartwright made such great contributions, he's occasionally referred to as the most influential man in modern baseball. He introduced things such as the three-strike rule and the diamond-shaped field, along with many others to the game. One edit he made very early in the game was to change the way runners were called out. Formerly, if the ball was thrown at the runner and made contact, he was ruled out. However, Cartwright altered the rule so that runners had to be tagged by another player holding the ball, which greatly increased the safety. He also brought about the first Major League Baseball team, known as the New York Knickerbockers. As the 1840s progressed, more teams began popping up, such as the New York Nine. The Library of Congress reports that numerous teams emerged throughout New York City and Brooklyn, all abiding by the rules of Andrew Cartwright. As time progressed, more and more teams began to emerge, and baseball was given the name of America's pastime. As the game continued to be played throughout the late 1800s, there became a necessity to formalize the game. Fox Sports tells that it was due to this growth that the National Association was formed in 1871. This organization required an entry fee of $10 per team to play. However, after multiple seasons, this became very difficult due to teams not wanting to be forced to travel to other fields, and instead they dropped out rather than travel. The league began getting worse until in 1876, when 8 of the more reliable teams decided to form their own organization, known as the National League, which went on to survive even to today. According to Tom Nuppel, a few years later, in 1882, the American Association, later to become known as the American League, came to fruition. While this addition caused minor problems, it also allowed for the top team in each league to compete in a championship of sorts. And in 1883, the first ever World Series was held. Baseball ran smoothly for many years to come, with one exception. The players and coaches of the sport rejected men of color and forced them to play in a separate league. This disregard was commonplace at the time, as African Americans were greatly mistreated throughout the United States. However, this changed in 1947, when the manager of the Brooklyn Dodgers, Branch Rickey, decided that players should be judged off of their ability and not the color of their skin. As he watched a few of the African Americans play baseball, Rickey noticed an absolute standout player in Jackie Robinson. After meeting with Robinson, Rickey quickly added him to the Brooklyn Dodgers. Robinson excelled in his first season with the team. According to JackieRobinson.com, Robinson went on to become the National League Rookie of the Year, as well as the most valuable player of the National League. While he certainly faced great ridicule, both from his teammates and the audience, he weathered the storm, which allowed for many more managers to follow suit with Rickey, and color was no longer a differentiating factor in baseball. As years progressed, baseball continued to grow and develop new traditions, superstitions, every year. Baseball culture seemed to develop something new every single year. While these additions range from a new home run celebration to the odd but seemingly effective new batting stance, traditions such as throwing back home run balls hit by different teams, playing the song Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and the 7th inning stretch are part of what makes baseball as an inviting of event to watch. Of course, there are also many superstitions that accompany these as well. These include, but are not limited to, if you play well, you will eat the same thing the very next day. Baseball players are to never, ever step on the chalk before a game. And even sometimes wear your hat backwards or even sideways when your team is hitting well. The many baseball superstitions make the game a bit more interesting and help with not feeling so defeated in the game that is statistically more failure than success. Some baseball traditions are not necessarily very focused on the game either. BarDown.com tells us of some of the most humorous traditions in the game of baseball. There is the hot foot, in which players will attach matches to the back of another player's cleats and set them on fire. Also, what is known as bubble gummed. This is when a player blows a bubble with gum and places it on another player's head, simply to see how long it will stay there. Both of these traditions are less about the seriousness of winning, and more focused on simply enjoying the moment. After all, baseball is simply a bunch of grown men being able to live out their dream of playing baseball. And it is because of their dreams that people around the world are able to experience the great game known as baseball. Beginning with nothing but a few men who wanted to combine a few games together and have a little fun, baseball began. Through the helping hand of Andrew Cartwright, the game of baseball flourished in the mid-1800s. As the National and American leagues developed, baseball became an even larger industry with more professionalization. The inclusion of African Americans in the sport, due to the decision of one manager, helped affect many people's perspective and influenced countless lives. But baseball would not be what it is today without the atmosphere it creates for people. The sights, sounds, and smells of the ballpark are what continue to bring an audience. The game would not be what it is today without traditions and superstitions to keep both the players and the fans interested and entertained. Regardless of how much time goes by, America's pastime will always be a staple in history of the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you.
1, 2, 3,
4,
5.